Just start with your name and your jurisdiction and title, please.
Sure. Hi, I'm Sharon Subadan, City Manager in Albany, Georgia.
So, thinking back to being a first-time administrator, what's the one thing you would advise someone starting their first ever leadership role, administrator role?
I think it's really important. So when you're first selected, and it's very exciting, you've fallen in love with the community and they've fallen in love with you, so it's very exciting. But I think it's really important to ensure that you have a solid work agreement that spells out all the details. And it's probably a really good idea to get somebody who is experienced to take a look at it, make sure the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, things like how your evaluations are going to be done. Unfortunately, we have to talk about severance and the nitty-gritty of what happens in 4 years or 5 years or 6 years. I think it's really important that as a first-time administrator, you don't skip over that in the excitement of being selected and in the emotion of the moment. I also think it's really important to, once that agreement is codified, I think it's important to look at it periodically to kind of make sure that you're living up to your side of it and the jurisdiction's living up to their side of it.
And what are some tips for work-life balance you would give to a new CAO?
So it's very hard to establish boundaries, but it's necessary. I tell people all the time, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And the demands of the job will consume you, especially if you're really dedicated and you're excited and you're into it and you love the community. But you don't want to experience burnout. So you have to establish some boundaries and figure out what is it that you do for fun. Make sure not to let that get squeezed out of your life. And maintain, I think, relationships with friends and colleagues and people who can help you to keep that balance and remember why it is you're working in the first place.
What kind of mentors or advisors should first-time managers seek out?
I think it's very important to have colleagues who are in the profession, who have been in the profession, understand your role, understand what you do, that can give you advice, give you encouragement. It's difficult sometimes when you're in that seat because you can't necessarily turn to a staff member to give you advice. But and then there's the mentors like your pastor or your person that leads your place of worship, and also colleagues from your prior experience. So one of my mentors is a person that hired me as a director in my previous jurisdiction, and is always just good to talk to and bounce some things off of.
What are some ICMA resources you find helpful, especially if you think back to your first experience as a CAO?
So I think the Code of Ethics is not only is it essential for you to understand it and know it. I printed it, I put it on my wall. It's very helpful because, especially as a new administrator, sometimes you get asked to do things that are not appropriate. When the elected official that you really like says, do you mind putting a sign on your lawn? We can't do that. But it's nice to have the ICMA Code of Ethics kind of as our rock to be able to say, I can't do that, it's against our Code of Ethics, and here's why. So it makes it not personal. And they actually really respect that. And conferences like this really give us an opportunity to network with our peers, to see new technology, to experience new ideas. So I think that's the value in being an ICMA member and being an active member.
As a new CAO, did you ever need to manage older subordinates, and what advice would you give to somebody starting out who's in that position?
So both of my ECMs, assistant city managers, were there before I got there. One has 46 years of experience, and one has 35 years of experience. So they're both senior to me in the organization. But I think at the end of the day, it's about trust. I think the most important thing that you do when you walk into a new organization is to establish trust with your elected officials, with your staff, and with your community, and have that open line of communication, lay out expectations, let them know what your expectations are of them, and let them tell you what their expectations are of us as administrators. I want them to feel safe with their career in my hands and vice versa. I want to feel safe with my career in their hands. And I think my experience has been very good with tenured people in the organization. They have incredible organizational knowledge. They know the community. People know them. They have credibility because they've been there such a long time. And they have helped to introduce me to people in the community. And so my experience has been really, really good with that.
What are some emotional triggers that you have to monitor or avoid that you've learned over the years? And if emotional triggers isn't quite the right word, stressors or pain points or series of overwhelm.
Sure.
And how did you deal with it?
So I've learned that you just can't take some things personally. So, and I think pretty much every administrator has experienced kind of being put on the spot by an elected official in a public setting. So you're in a meeting, a constituent may be complaining, and even though you've done everything you can to solve the problem, the constituent is not being totally honest, and you feel attacked, or you feel that somebody's questioning your integrity or questioning your capability or your skill or your management style. So I've learned it's really important to take a breath and not take it personally. When things are said that are patently false on the record, it's not a good idea to engage at that point, because then it becomes a kind of a back and forth that's not productive. So I think it's important to get on the record the accurate information, but you have to be strategic in how you do that, and do it in a way that's non-threatening, do it in a way that is not defensive, because when we're attacked, we generally get it defensive, so we have to be careful not to portray that, because that goes over poorly and seems really unprofessional.
That's such good advice. That sounds like such an uncomfortable and a triggering situation.
It's an awkward situation to be in.
What strategies do you have to help get through those days when you feel like you're done with this whole manager thing?
Well, I think it's important to remember why you're doing what you're doing. I'm in this for service. I'm obviously not in this to make money. We obviously want to make a good living, but I think you have to focus on some of your wins. And when you think about those wins and how hard it was to get that win, it kind of gives you the encouragement to keep it going. But I also think it sort of goes back to that work-life balance question. At some point, you have to recognize when you need to pull away. I like to travel, and so there are times when I plan trips strategically because I know I need to pull myself out of the situation, take a break, enjoy family, see some fresh things, and get rejuvenated. Everybody has their thing that they do to get refreshed, get rejuvenated, because a lot of times I think what happens when you get to that point is you're just tired, and there's really no anecdote or any solution for tiredness but rest.
Great advice. I'm going to take that on. What one or two recommendations do you have for new managers to protect their time given all of the demands that others put on them?
I think you have to establish some boundaries. So I have a very open door policy, and my staff really takes advantage of that. They pop in and out like 100 times a day, But I've had to establish some time frames where it is, you know, if my door is closed, unless the city's on fire, don't beat down my door, so that I can focus, so that I can make sure the things that are on my desk are done, the commissioners that I have to talk to, I've talked to, the follow-up items that I need to follow up on are taken care of. So I think you have to work out some strategies for how you pull away. I also think that, you know, you have to make time for family. I think you have to make time for wellness, you know, exercise, eating well, you know, not just eating on the run every day, eating fast food, you know, it'll kill you, literally. So, but, you know, we are on 24/7, and that comes with the territory. And so you have to figure out how to make that work inside your lifestyle.
Great. Well, these are the end of the questions that Rob was developing, but is there anything else any other advice that we didn't touch on that you'd like to give to people in this situation, to new people starting out?
I do. So, and I heard this from another speaker, and I was like, that is so 100% true. And you have two kinds of currency. And one of them is performance currency. You know, when you go in first, you do a phenomenal job. Everybody raves about it. You know, it's just great. But it tends to have diminishing returns. So year 2, you do a great job. It's like, oh, that's great. By year 4, you know, that's just what everybody expects. It's a great job, but that's everybody's expectation. So I think what you have to do in concert with really high-level performance is also develop high-level relationships. And I believe really firmly that the success, the difference between being successful and not, are how you craft and grow the relationships that you have with your elected officials, with your community, and with your staff. And it's a lot of work to develop relationships that are meaningful, but I think it all circles back to the basis of trust. And if you don't have trust, and your community doesn't trust you, or your board doesn't trust you, and vice versa, I think it's hard to be successful in the situation. So it's important to use those emotional intelligence attributes that we have to develop relationships and to build trust.
Excellent. What a great answer.
Thanks.
I think that is it for this
All
interview.
right.
Thank you so much for
You're
being
welcome.
part of this.
Sure. I hope it works out really well.
Well,